Leading by goddess Mart, King Arakamani returned the Nile lands, by expelling the Greeks and freeing the folks of Egypt. His heir Ankamani expanded the lands of the Kush kingdom to the empire size. Having ascended the throne, Hephaestus changed his name to Sagdadonak and declared himself pharaoh, equal to the gods. The nobility had regarded this as sacrilege. Under the leadership of Hentawi, a rebellion flared up what grew into a civil war. By the beginning of 217, the pharaoh's armies went on the offensive. In January, the Sagdadonak army reclaimed Sitra city. A couple of days later, the heir to the throne, Prince Setra, was fighting for the city of Capsa. Meanwhile, his brother Natak conquered the Sicilian settlement of Ponamos. A week later, the united fleet of the Kush Empire landed in Corsica and returned the Eulalia city. In Crete, the imperial army infiltrated the city of Iapitna. Untrained rebels were smashed in street battles. In the spring city, Akragas was taken. The situation was heating up. The Phoenician state of Tingis entered the war against Hentawi by capturing the Siga city. In response to this, the pharaoh stopped trading with the Tingis. In the summer, the cities of Domitia, Gaul and Syracuse returned to the Kush Empire. The rebels had the last Mygdal city, but Pharaoh Sagdadonak was determined to return to the city of Siga and started a war with Tingis. In winter 216, the Kush army entered the city of Siga without obstacles. In the summer, under the leadership of Setra, the avant-garde of the imperial forces crushed another army of the Phoenicians. That opened the way to the city of Tingis, where the forces of the Kush Empire were immediately transferred. The impetuous assault ended the existence of the Tingis state. In spring 215, the armies of Pharaoh Sagdadonak reached the rebel stronghold of the Megdal city. The strength of the Kush rebels could not be compared with the power of the imperial army, which in her irrepressible fury, chopping the rebels to pieces. Few of the traitors managed to escape. The leader of the revolt, Hentawi, was surrounded and executed by the pharaoh personally. Finishing off groups of rebels hiding in the Mauritania mountains, Sagdadonak defeated their newly elected leader. Under the leadership of Prince Niakmedi, the remnants of the rebels were found and killed. The revolt was finally suppressed. An invisible disease caught in the campaigns worsened the health of the pharaoh every year. This has caused a lot of gossips. Trying to prove to himself and for his submitteds his strength, Sagdadonak personally led the campaign to Ebossum. Pharaoh fought in the thick of the battle. It turned out that in the battle in the ranks of the enemy fought and died the son of the Sardinia ruler. Discover about the death of his heir, Tasinius took hostage all the dark-skinned people who were in his lands. Taking an army with him, Sagdadonak personally went to negotiations, which turned into a battle. Pharaoh didn't doubt the victory so much, that he even accepted the challenge to a duel from the Sardinia ruler. Under the fierce onslaught of Tasinius, the pharaoh was mortally wounded, but after a moment, Sardinian ruler Getshotel smite, of revenge from Setra hands. After the battle for the city of Carolus, the princes Setra, Natak, and Niakmedi, together with the body of their deceased father, went home. In the summer of 212, the new pharaoh became Setra. The young pharaoh did not want to wage war with the remnants of Rome in cold Gallia. The war of the Seleucid inheritance promised better lands. In autumn 211, the Kush Empire enters the war against Palmyra. Under the command of the pharaoh, the first blow was struck at the enemy capital. The second attack was directed at the city of Adamarchu, which was lost by the Kush during the civil war. At the beginning of 210, the army of the Palmyra Shah was broken. In the spring, Pharaoh's brother Natak fought a battle for Seleucia, the last city under the rule of the Palmyrans. The victory of the empire in this battle put an end to the history of the Palmyra state. In early summer, in the midst of a feast in honor of Natak's wedding and the expansion of imperial possessions, Pharaoh Setra was poisoned. Setra did not have time to announce the heir, and the title of pharaoh passed to his brother. With his first decrees, Pharaoh Natak declared war on the Cilicians, accusing their ambassadors of the murder of Setra. The Cilician city Dapsuk was quickly captured. In the fall of 210, the Pontians entered the war as enemies of the empire. The army of Diocles blocked the way to Tarsus, but the decisive victory of the empire opened the way to the city. The Cilician people were unable to defend the city, and lost their last lands. At the beginning of 209, the remnants of the Cilicians, having united with the Pontic forces, together had the last chance to hold back the imperial offensive. When the allied vanguard was broken, Pharaoh Natak rushed into the battle, dragging the Kush warriors along. The Pontiacs fell one after another, like dry ears of wheat. In the spring, the city of Samosata became part of the Kush Empire, and already in the autumn, having subdued the city of Amasia, Natak takes the victory in this war. Expansionism of the Kush Empire worsened relations with many nations. In subsequent years, the Kingdom of Galatia terminated the treaties with the Kush Empire, but Pharaoh managed to prepare the armies for war, and start the offensive first. The Hatra settlement fell first, but the first truly major battle was the Battle of Dura Europo. Galatia's warriors staunchly resisted Anubis's hub, but the fetters of death gripped all enemies of the empire. In a battle near Antioch, Pharaoh Natak personally defeated Samiros and Iberia, which were generals and heroes of the Galatia kingdom. After that, the army of the pharaoh moved to Antioch. The city taking was easy. However, the Galatia kingdom was unwilling to lose its lands, and soon started the new battle for Antioch. Horus, lighting up the battlefield, Shu directed the blows of the Kushites. The empire warriors steadfastly hold their positions for the pharaoh. Natak himself crushed the Galatian commander, thereby breaking the spirit of the enemy. Increasingly, the battle champions of Galatia challenged Natak. Their death only increased the pharaoh glory. In the Battle of Edessa, a downpour of arrows slaughtered Pharaoh's enemies. Like a sandstorm, an empire was coming. Massacre, then Iconium, new cities entered the Kush Empire. At the beginning of 205, Side and the capital of Galatia, Ankara, were captured. In the spring, the armies of Kush annexed the cities of Ephesus and Pesinut. By the summer of, Natak's army stormed Pergam city. The warriors of the empire swept enemies out of the pharaoh path. The city fell, but the expansion must stop for a while, because the discontent in the occupied lands grew, and took time to calm down them. But Galatia and her allies are unwilling to make peace. Nicomedia was besieged. Pharaoh's armies bypassed the city, and attacked Athenia's settlement. After taking the victory, Pharaoh freed Tanana's folk, and after that has been sent to begin the assault on Nicomedia. Having lost the city, the people of Galatia also lost their independence, and became a vassal of the empire. But the war continued. In the autumn of 204, the begun Battle of Edessa, in which the Thracian army was completely destroyed, and the Thracians themselves became the next vassals of the Kush Empire. The same end befell the Dacians, after the Battle of Polendeva, in the spring of 203, which put an end to the war.
If you like this video, please put like and subscribe to the channel, and if you can, consider the possibilities to support the video in this format through a Patreon or Boosty, then using the links in the description.